The Ford LTD LX, made in 1984 and 1985, is a car that many people have forgotten about, but it's got a really cool story behind it. Back in the day, Ford wanted to make a car that would be fun to drive but also practical for families. They used the same platform as the Mustang, called the Fox platform, to create the LTD LX. At the time, American car companies were trying to come up with exciting new designs, and the LTD LX was part of that trend. Ford's goal was to make a car that would compete with European and Japanese brands by combining the power of an American muscle car with the practicality of an everyday car. Under the hood, the LTD LX had a powerful 5.0-liter V8 engine, just like the one in the Mustang. This engine could produce 165 horsepower, which was pretty impressive for a sedan back then. The car also had a 4-speed automatic transmission, making it easy for anyone to drive. But the LTD LX wasn't just about straight-line speed. It had some serious upgrades to make it handle better, too. The suspension was improved with sway bars and better shocks, and the brakes were bigger for better stopping power. It even had a special rear differential that helped the car grip the road better. On the outside, the LTD LX had some unique styling touches that made it stand out from other sedans. It had black trim and red stripes on the body, giving it a sporty look. Inside, the car had a tachometer and other gauges that you'd normally find in a sports car, not a family sedan. Ford didn't make a ton of these cars, though. Over the 2 years it was in production, they only built about 3,260 of them. This was partly because the LTD LX was aimed at a pretty specific group of buyers who wanted a high-performance sedan. It was also more expensive than other LTD models, which probably limited its appeal. Another reason why the LTD LX is often forgotten is that Ford started focusing on newer models like the Taurus, which had more modern features and styling. The Taurus ended up being a huge success for Ford, and it kind of overshadowed older models like the LTD LX. Even though not many people remember the LTD LX today, it's still an important part of Ford's history. It shows that the company was willing to try out different ideas and push the limits of what a family car could be. The LTD LX proved that the Fox platform was versatile enough to be used for all kinds of vehicles, not just sports cars like the Mustang. For car enthusiasts who know their stuff, the LTD LX is a symbol of a time when American car companies were taking risks and trying new things. It may not have been a huge sales success, but it represents a cool moment in automotive history when practicality and performance were combined in a unique way. So, even though the Ford LTD LX may be a forgotten car today, it's got a fascinating backstory that makes it worth remembering. It's a rare machine that shows what can happen when a car company decides to think outside the box and try something different. The TVR Tasmin, also known as the TVR 281, is a rare and unique sports car with a fascinating history. First introduced in 1980 by British automaker TVR, the Tasmin kicked off the company's Wedge series, known for its sharp, angular design. When it comes to the Tasmin's design and development, it was way ahead of its time. Oliver Winterbottom created the car's wedge-shaped body, inspired by the popular futuristic looks of the late 1970s and early 1980s. The fiberglass body panels not only gave the Tasmin its one-of-a-kind appearance, but also kept it lightweight and nimble. Ian Jones worked on the chassis, creating a tubular steel space frame that made the car super rigid and safe. The Tasmin's design was a big change from the rounder shapes of earlier TVR models, setting a new path for the company's future cars. Inside, the Tasmin was designed to be both practical and comfortable, with a layout that put the driver first. Now, let's talk about the Tasmin's engine and performance. The car's 2.8-liter Ford Cologne V6 engine set it apart from other sports cars of the era. This engine was known for being reliable and delivering good performance with 160 horsepower in the Series 1 models. Combined with the car's lightweight build, this power led to impressive acceleration and top speed for its time. The later Series 2 models had a slight drop in power to 150 horsepower, but still had strong performance. The Tasmin's handling was even better thanks to its well-tuned suspension system, with double wishbones in the front and semi-trailing arms in the rear. This setup struck a good balance between a comfortable ride and sporty handling. TVR didn't make a ton of Tasmins, which is why they're so rare today. The company made around 1,167 V6 Tasmin models, including different versions like the two-seater coupe, 2+2 coupe, and convertible. The Tasmin 200, with its smaller 2.0-liter engine, was even rarer. Later on, the Tasmin 350i was introduced with a more powerful Rover V8 engine, adding to the variety in the lineup. These low production numbers were partly because TVR was a small manufacturer focused on hand-built, high-quality vehicles. The limited production also means each Tasmin has its own unique story and character, making it even more appealing to collectors. The Tasmin's rarity is also affected by its short time in the U.S. market. TVR came back to the U.S. in the early 1980s after a break, but several problems led to them pulling out by 1987. One big issue was the huge increase in liability insurance costs, which went from $160,000 to over $1 million. There were also problems with the distribution network and warranty claims, making it hard for TVR to keep going in the U.S. Because of this, only a small number of Tasmins were ever brought to the United States. This scarcity has made the Tasmin a highly sought-after collectible, especially in North America, where finding a well-maintained example can be tough. Inside, the Tasmin had a driver-focused cockpit with a layout that emphasized ease of use and accessibility of controls. The dashboard was designed to be clear and straightforward, with all the necessary information easily visible to the driver. These design choices helped the Tasmin stand out in a market full of more conventional sports cars.
The Triumph Acclaim, a car made by British Leyland, and we'll call that BL for short. They produced the Acclaim from 1981 to 1984, and it was the last car to have the Triumph name and the first important product to come from BL working with Honda. This team-up was a big change in how BL made cars, bringing together Japanese engineering and British manufacturing. In the late 1970s, British Leyland was having a tough time. The company was losing money, dealing with strikes, and had a bad reputation for making unreliable cars. To fix these problems, BL needed a new plan. They decided to partner with Honda, a company known for being innovative and making high-quality cars. Sir Fred Warner, a former British ambassador to Japan, and Michael Edwards, the head of BL, helped make this happen. By the end of 1979, BL and Honda had a deal. This was a big deal because it was one of the first times a British and a Japanese car company worked together. Honda was seen as a company that thought ahead and made great cars. BL hoped that by working with Honda, they could make their own cars better and more reliable. The car they made together was the Triumph Acclaim, which was based on the Honda Ballad. Inside BL, this project was called Project Bounty. The goal was to make a car that was as reliable as a Japanese car but had the style and comfort of a British car. Using the Honda Ballad as the starting point for the Acclaim was a smart move. The Ballad was a small car that was known for being dependable and good on gas. These were important selling points in the early 1980s when the economy was tough. BL's engineers worked closely with Honda's team to make the Ballad work well for the European market. They made sure it matched what people in Europe liked and expected. The end result was a car that brought together the best of both British and Japanese car making. The Triumph Acclaim was designed to be a practical and reliable family car. It was small, which made it easy to drive in cities. It also had front-wheel drive, which made it handle well and feel stable on the road. The heart of the Acclaim was a 1.3-liter engine that came from Honda. This engine was known for running smoothly and not using too much fuel. These were big advantages when gas prices were high. The Acclaim's engine made about 70 horsepower, which was enough for everyday driving. Inside, the Acclaim was simple but functional. The dashboard was clean and easy to read. The seats were comfortable, but the back seat was a bit cramped for bigger families. Even so, driving the Acclaim was pleasant, the steering was responsive, and the ride was smooth. Most Acclaims had a 5-speed manual transmission, but you could also get a semi-automatic gearbox called the Triomatic. This was a good option for people who wanted an easier driving experience. For its time, the Acclaim had a lot of features. It came with an AM/FM radio, seats that reclined in the front, and a heater. The nicer trim levels added extras like a sunroof, alloy wheels, and better materials inside. The Avon Acclaim was a special edition that really stood out. It had leather seats, wood trim, and special paint colors. Another cool version was the Avon Turbo. It had a turbocharger that boosted the engine's power to 105 horsepower. It also had sporty touches like alloy wheels and decals on the sides. When the Triumph Acclaim came out in 1981, it quickly became popular in the UK. People liked that it was reliable, well-built, and good on gas. This was a big improvement over many of BL's earlier cars. The Acclaim did so well that it was the 7th best-selling car in Britain in 1982 and the 8th in 1983. This was a big deal for BL, a company that had struggled with quality and reliability for a long time. Even though the Acclaim was a success, not everyone liked it. Some people thought it looked too plain and didn't have the style of older Triumph cars. Also, while the car was reliable, it was known to rust, especially in the UK where it rains a lot. Still, the Acclaim did well overall and was built well. This helped people trust BL's cars again. It also set the stage for more partnerships between British and Japanese car companies in the future. Nowadays, the Triumph Acclaim is a rare and collectible classic car. It's rare partly because a lot of cars from that time have disappeared over the years. Also, only a small number of the special editions were made. In 2020, there were only 125 Triumph Acclaims still registered to drive in the UK. Another 258 were registered as off-the-road, SORN, which means they're not being driven. This low survival rate has made the car more desirable to people who love classic cars and collect them. The Avon Acclaim and Avon Turbo are especially hard to find and in high demand. The Avon Acclaim had fancy touches like leather seats, wood trim, and unique two-tone paint jobs. These made it stand out from the regular Acclaims. The Avon Turbo is even rarer. It had better performance and a sportier look. Only a few Avon Turbos are known to still exist today. For Triumph Acclaim collectors, these models are the most prized because they're so scarce and different.